Welcome back. It's been a big day. I don't think it's been that long a day, but we're finishing with a big blow right at the end as well. All the way through today, you've heard all sorts of conversations about collaboration between scientific organisations, industry, government and industry. Flavia just mentioned it. You've had our keynote at the start, talked about wanting to think differently. And so the theme to close out the day is actually on collaboration. Collaboration between government and community, government and business, collaboration between businesses, collaboration between universities and researchers and businesses. But how do we think differently, step back to all be able to get on top of the challenges that we face collectively and individually? And so we have three to close out today. And our first up really needs no introductions. It's Katie Hulmes from Oz Minerals, their General Manager for Transformation and Readiness. Katie has over 15, I've known you longer than 15 years, Katie, maybe more than 15 years experience, but we don't talk about that. In civil construction and mining industries, she's a very passionate advocate for promotion of investment and the support of regional communities. She leads their future activity to manage technical and non-technical business transformation to challenge the ways that Oz Minerals does their work. Please welcome Katie.
The good thing about Alex ageing me is she comes with me on that journey, so thank you very much, Alex. A huge thank you to everyone for having me here today. I want to acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the Kaurna people and pay my respects to their elders past and present and to their emerging leaders. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands in which all of our operations across Oz Minerals operate on around the world. And also those of you online, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of which you're dialing into our sessions today. Today I'm starting the presentation about the Oz Way. The Oz Way for us represents the ecosystem of Oz Minerals, and I'm going to frame my discussion through this today. Value creation really is at the centre of everything we do and everything we talk about at Oz Minerals. Value creation is personified for us through employees, communities, governments, shareholders, suppliers. We've also personified our operating model. If you look into this a little deeper, you'll see things like stakeholder expectations underneath our context. This means that there are people out there that expect something of the mining sector, of copper producers, large producers and small producers, explorers, big business, small business. It doesn't matter, we're all in this together. We need to consider what those expectations are of us as we make our choices. We have set out our policies at Oz Minerals through the lens of value creation, and they outline our intent to create value. And I'd encourage you to have a look at those on our website. As you move from left to right, every aspect of the Oz Way, there is an aspect of people, not through the lens of hierarchy, but through the lens of a continuous loop, where we listen and act. And the more we listen and act, the more we seek feedback and the more we include, the more we can remain modern and head towards our purpose. People will help us all achieve our purpose. For us, our purpose is going beyond what's possible to make lives better. Let's break that down. Going beyond what's possible. Now, what's possible for me and what's possible for you may be different, and that's okay. We set our own personal boundaries as to what going beyond means for us, but it's how we show up, how we be curious, how we ask why and or why not, that will help us be able to seek perspective to achieve our own going beyond. We need to have a desire to learn. It's through learning that we can make lives better. Think about the people that you're working with, those that are impacted by the work we do, those that will realise opportunities from what we do, and find ways to engage with them, work with them. It's only until you ask that you actually truly realise what somebody wants or what matters to them. This is our IP at Oz Minerals. It drives our culture, the way we think about things, and the work we want to do. An example for us around how we seek perspective and collaborate is when we're working on a material piece of work. For us, we call it a tier 1 piece of work. We look to create diverse teams called stakeholder teams, and we encourage our people to put representatives from outside of our organisations on those teams to bring perspective and multiple lenses to what we deliver. So I'm here to talk about It Takes a Village, and I've had many of you say to me, what was that title for your presentation about? And really, it's just about people. So I'm going to use the context of the work I do in transformation to bring up some practical examples of what I've learned and what my team continue to learn as we look at the way we engage with people. So what is Think and Act Differently? Emerging from the disruptions of 2020, we saw an opportunity for Oz Minerals to provide opportunities that uplift not only our own capability, but that of the mining industry at large. We want to access innovations and foster deep collaboration and drive change. We do not believe that TAD is here to benefit only Oz Minerals. It is here to benefit the broader ecosystem, and that we believe that Oz Minerals will be stronger if it is a part of a stronger ecosystem. It was great to hear the Minister talk this morning about the Akani Guru Underground Innovation and Testing Facility. As an example here in South Australia, where it's not about just Oz Minerals or the state government, it's about what we all want to do together to create that facility, not just for miners, but for innovators globally. Our incubator has 5 focus themes, and our in-house entrepreneur, Burkhard Seifert, spoke to you about those earlier today. Each of those themes takes a unique lens over a challenge that the entire ecosystem is facing. We want to use those to drive and find new ways to attract like-minded, innovative, and brave individuals and organisations from within and outside of mining. We're not hiding away from the fact that we are actually trying to build an ecosystem of people. We don't always get this right. When you're working with people, you often make mistakes. Every person we work with looks for something different, a different way to be included. We're up against changing mindsets. We all have bias related to commercial constructs, views on intellectual property, pace of decision-making, existing sales models, business models, research incentive schemes, timeframes. I could go on about all of the things that we can think of that make working in a diverse ecosystem challenging. A diverse ecosystem that's always evolving and is always being added to every day with new players. In TAD, we look for a simple process to access this. We try and drive a place for innovators and technical expertise to come together and use experiments as pathways to investment, using those experiments to develop capabilities and accelerating our time to value by taking time to learn. A simple step, framing, diverging, converging, and accelerating. Rapidly testing assumptions and hypotheses as we go together towards a cohort and collaboration model that will drive long-term viability of technology. On the left-hand side on the picture of the screen, you see a number of collaborations we're a part of. These range from traditional research partnerships, new industry collaborations, and international projects. These are critical to our industry and to our sector, and I thank the many representatives in the room today who have led these and or are driving people towards these. These collaborations bring people together. Each of them are unique in their own right. When you look along the technology development spectrum, you will see that there are many different actors and many different roles for people to play, from a TRL level 1, where the universities thrive, through to your commercialisation levels at TRL 8 and 9. To find a way to seamlessly bring those together and leverage the knowledge from each other is something we're striving to do. But boy, are we learning how hard that truly is. We need to build capability to understand the uniqueness of each stage, each actor, each opportunity. We need to think about capability and translation, and we need to think about how to transfer those things ultimately into our operating environments. So ultimately, we need to work within a learning environment. The motivations that lead to success are different for different people. And bringing those people together across global time zones, different jurisdictions, different cultures, different languages, different backgrounds, it's where we find our strength. Our strength will always be and is always in our difference. As a team at TAD, we're always reflecting on what our superpowers are. And I think the team get frustrated with me referring to Captain Planet. Now, if you're from my generation, you'll know that it's with our superpowers combined. Captain Planet makes a huge difference. But it's not our superpowers that where we really find the value for collaboration. It's in our vulnerability. And it's not until we can accept the vulnerability that we have as individuals that we can find another person that can help work with us and grow into a new area. That's when humans work best together. It's in their vulnerabilities. So many of you would have project backgrounds, as did I, as did my team. And what we have also found is that working through this innovation pipeline approach, you can often filter out things based on the fact that they're not very certain. We need to think about how do we actually prioritize things that are uncertain and go about understanding those, leveraging what we know about each other and what we've learned about each other. So let's stay on this human side of innovation and change for a bit longer. Everett Rogers in 1962 came up with the diffusion of innovation, a social science theory explaining how people respond to change. It was about aiming to increase the rate of adoption while reducing uncertainty, and I'm sure many of you have seen it before. Now, the funny thing for me was when you overlay over this curve things like the Gartner hype curve or the technology commercialization curve, we start using words like troughs of disillusionment, stagnation chasms, valleys of death. And last night I learned about a new one with the extended valley of death. And I thought, gee, what a fantastic environment to work in. Please let me go there. If that's the way we pitch innovation and change, and that's the environment we encourage people to come and work in, I can understand why people don't want to move in to being early adopters of technology. I think we have an opportunity to reposition that, to rebrand that, and frame it differently. So this brings me to our village of people. What does 16% look like in an organisation of, say, 500? So that's 13 innovators and 67 early adopters. 16%, a magic number for the statisticians in the room, beyond which diffusion of technology starts to occur. So actually, you don't need to convince everyone that it's a good idea, just 16%. And those people can go with you. I read a fantastic article called Who's on Your Bus? So when you're attempting transformation, it doesn't necessarily matter what physical environment you've created, it's about who goes with you on that journey. And how do you make people supported to go with you? 16% would be a good number to get on that bus, I reckon. It said, gather the earlies. And I really loved that. And that's the approach that we're taking in TAD. It's about finding the brave and the courageous. We started this through a challenge approach, and you've heard in many conferences about the challenges we've been running. But the reason why we run them is maybe not clear. And it's about activating an ecosystem of innovators on topics that we were familiar with, but being comfortable to let those relationships mature wherever they may want to go. I like to think that the exploration geologists in the room probably understand what this feels like. You have to be determined to persist, even though many times you may not get it right. It's hard for innovators to get into our sector. Our traditional approaches to studies and procurement don't create a lot of space for working in this way. We've had a few surprises. A lot of innovators out there didn't know a lot about the mining sector. So my team have delivered more Mining 101 courses this year than they thought they'd ever have to do in their lives. And we've realised that it adds value to help people understand the opportunity to translate their technology over to our industry. And through doing that, we've broadened our ecosystem and provided more access for more people. This is an enormous opportunity for us as an industry. We need to be better listeners, better teachers, and better learners. So back to this ecosystem that we've been building. Each challenge has attracted hundreds of people that want to work differently. And I know there's many of you in the room today that have had a go at this and participated in some of our open innovation challenges. It's not familiar, and I thank you for leaning in. We're always open to and encourage people to give us feedback as we work out how to make this more accessible and look for more inclusiveness in the process as we go forwards. We're playing in that horrible valley of death chasm land, and so please come and play with us in between TRL 3 and 7 and help us come up with a better name for that. We now have over 1,500 members in our ecosystem of TAD after just a short 8 months. We've started creating ripples where people are now sharing technologies that we didn't even think were possible, and we're seeing networks amongst our cohorts form in places that we didn't realise existed. We try not to control those, but let them grow and develop and foster and create a safe environment for those people to work together in the margins. Some people might think this is expensive. It's really not. It doesn't have to be. It's a mindset more than anything, and a willingness to have a go. People will always find a reason to say no, but it's easier if we go together. We started our third challenge, scalable and adaptable, in what I now know is the extended valley of death, realizing that not only did we want to talk about modularity and flexibility, we wanted to actually try and create an ecosystem around a new challenge and looked for ways to foster the development of new technologies for a completely new mining model. To do this, we needed someone to come with us. To help us find those innovators and early adopters, we partnered with Inspire Resources in Canada, and I've asked Andy today to share a few words about his experience of working this way with us.
Thank you, Katie, and hello, everybody. It's a privilege to be joining you today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and Snuneymuxw First Nation, also known as Vancouver Island in Western Canada. A little bit about Inspire Resources. We incorporated about 2 years ago. We're a for-purpose company. We had a whole bunch of ideas for how to improve mining, but they were systemic ideas. And it really took a business model innovation to make all of those ideas make sense. So we're looking ahead to a time when the most appropriate form of governance for certain kinds of mining projects is for the local community to be the owner of the project and for the project to be designed for community socioeconomic development purposes. We would be the prime contractor that would bring mining as a service to community development. And that requires a mindset shift. It's quite a radical transformation of the mine project lifecycle and the mine design process. And this is what really got the conversation started with Oz Minerals about a year ago. We realized we had a shared ambition for flexibility in mining systems. And so we spent some time building a strategic foundation under that, and then went to the crowd with this challenge that we're currently co-leading. So we have a terrific relationship with Oz Minerals. I'm really proud of it. And I want to share with you a few of the critical success factors that I think are helping us today. The first of those is that we spent some time learning together, learning how to learn together. And when you learn how to learn together, you learn a lot about each other. And as you learn all of that, you build trust between you. So we gave ourselves the time and the space to do that. And that was a really important first step. The second critical success factor is that we don't have a B2B relationship, we have an H to H relationship. So it's humans to humans. Katie and I co-sponsor it. We meet every 2 weeks. It's a priority meeting for us. And we're very open and honest with each other in those meetings. We share our hopes, our fears, our aspirations. We talk about the future and we build possibilities on our shared values. This enables us to really lead our teams together, and it's a key part of this relationship. The final CSF is that it's not just us. You know, because we're running this as a crowd challenge, there's a whole cohort of innovators who are looking to us to ensure that they get value out of this exercise. That creates a social obligation. And it's a social obligation that is really powerful. And it's powerful for us as leaders to experience that. It's something I think TAD is very good at. And I think it's a unique feature of that incubator. So those, I think, are the critical success factors. It's a terrific relationship for us to be in as a startup company. We really value it. And I'm quite proud of it, actually. So thank you very much. And back to you, Katie.
I should say thank you to Andy. He might be watching back home. This last slide and the end of my presentation really is about the people, the humans. Too often we put up slides in our presentations that only show the company brands and logos of the work that we're doing. And I really wanted to take this chance, given that my topic today was about building a village and a focus on people, to show the faces of those that have worked closely with me behind the scenes over the last 8 months to build what you're seeing today as the incubator. This is not about everybody working full-time, but this is about people giving me their time, their ideas, their inspiration, their thoughts, and their passion. And that's what will drive change. The more we can leverage that and be persistent in our pursuits, I'm sure we can create fantastic futures together. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. That perspective on collaboration, the ability that Oz has had to link locally, nationally and internationally and get it to operationalise into your day-to-day workings, fascinating. And I think we'll all be looking forward to see how Oz progresses with this in the future. Our next speaker, unfortunately, is having to virtual in due to the current challenges across the country, but it's Florence Drummond. Florence is CEO of Indigenous Women in Mining and Resources Australia. Florence and I met a couple of years ago and we had her scheduled to come and talk on her perspective of Indigenous women in mining last year. Unfortunately, she was unable to attend last year and we were virtual. We haven't quite got her face-to-face, but we've got a wonderful opportunity to hear from her today. I'll now hand over to Florence.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining me today. My name is Florence Drummond. I'm a Darug Wuthathi woman from far north Queensland, and today I'm really looking forward to sharing with you an Iwimra's perspective of the complexities of Indigenous engagement in the mining and resources sector and how we can build towards meaningful and sustainable practices together. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which I am joining you from today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you are zooming in from today around Australia and of course around the world as well. Okay, let's kick it off. So what is Iwimra and how can we add value to your understanding of what the complexities are for our industry right now? Now, Iwimra started as a social network back in 2017. We kicked off our Facebook group back then with the sole purpose of connecting with other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women around Australia who are also in the industry. Now, since then, we've grown and developed and matured very, very nicely and very quickly into something that can provide more in terms of informing industry around best practice to do with the intersectionality of Indigenous women. And that's all to do with the feedback as Indigenous women in operations. So it's a really grassroots, genuine and connected group that we now currently have. So it's very exciting to continue these conversations here. Now, starting off back in 2017, what we've found is that other Indigenous women from around Australia were really excited to understand that there was a support group for Indigenous women nationally, on a national scale, that could really start to facilitate some conversations and identify the strategies that we could do to improve. And that was through talking about our challenges in a community and a culturally safe space. So that was something that we really wanted to continue as well and continue to grow. Just quickly, in those photos that we have there, this was early on. We started to get a lot of traction around people engaging with the page and the network. A lot of photos that were coming in, a lot of people's stories around their successes as well. The top right-hand corner there, we had these women who had just recently graduated their traineeship program, and it was actually one of their team members that sent this in. So at a very early stage of building our community, we found that there was a lot of need, like this appetite for it. So it was fantastic to create a platform that is very useful at a boat network level, but also at an industry level as well, where we can start to inform policy around best practice. Please have a look at a couple of reports that we were very interested in as Iwimra, in terms of interpreting what they mean to us, but then of course, how do we provide solutions for this as well? So back in 2020, there was an EY report released to identify that license to operate remains the #1 risk for operators around the globe. So of course, from an IWMRIS perspective, we really wanted to think about, well, what are the solutions in this? Because we are also responsible as well as employees of the network, but also as stakeholders as well in the industry. So what we really wanted to think about was how can we start to inform industry around what is best practice from an operational perspective, so from an internal operations perspective as women participating, how can we start to contribute to ensure that there is a clear channel towards decision makers. But then secondly as well, and I should probably say this was a priority back when we first started, is to really understand what are our progression pathways for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to progress to decision-making levels. So this was one thing that we did identify quite early on, and it was great to see here that there was a problem that we could start to solve, and for this progression to be a solution for that as well. One of the other things that we really wanted to highlight there and to continue to build on is our relationships with traditional owner groups on the lands on which we operate. So we've already connected in with a number of the prescribed body corporates that look after the areas or the agreements, and we are now proactively building our relationships with them. What we often find is that some of our employees are, of course, traditional owners. So, of course, we are respectful and responsible to ensure that that relationship, that we're always working on that as well, which is something that's really exciting for us. What we also found as well, again, in our research is a study by the University of South Australia. What they recently presented also is that another challenge, of course, but one that we can definitely work together towards, that more than 90% of listed companies do not have an Aboriginal engagement policy as well. This was definitely concerning for us being in the industry because, of course, if we're really wanting to create a culturally safe space, what's a framework that the company or organisation can really start to implement and understand how it translates to them specifically and to customise their solutions for? So this was something that we thought from a consulting perspective that we can really start to reach out and assist these team members or these operations around what specifically they can do from an industry perspective, but then to also assist in terms of attracting their talent pool and building their business capacity and understanding how to engage best. So again, these are both solution-based challenges that we really want to continue to contribute to. And of course, as well, we can continue to talk about that. Okay, let's now look at some solutions. Of course, we want you to walk away today with some practical strategies that you can start to implement into your organisation straight away, but also maybe think about some collaborative opportunities as well with any of your delivery partners, where you can really start to demonstrate that shared value, but also that commitment to meaningful and sustainable engagement as well over the long term. One thing that we really wanted to take a deep dive into is around the area of employment. Of course, this is essential and one of the key deliverables for anyone's reconciliation action plan and or Indigenous engagement strategy as well. So we thought we could unpack that a little bit more and think about some of the strategies or talk about the strategies that we know as women from industry, what will work for us and what works for our communities as well. From an attraction perspective, we really talked about what are the platforms, the visible platforms that these opportunities are shared on. And we also wanted to really think about how do we start to define then what our industry is. For example, what is copper? You know, how is that mined? And how can we start to think about if we have any role models in that space as well to showcase or profile their stories as well. We've found great success in that when we've been profiling people or women on our pages, that people actually know that we have diesel fitters in industry, we've got geologists in industry, and we've got, you know, people like lawyers and scientists as well who are Indigenous, who are our role models now. So that's probably one of the most exciting things that we've seen, that transition and that self-confidence be built as well for people who are thinking about a career in industry, but also for women as well who are looking to transfer their skills from an operational perspective into something different as well. Of course, industry reputation and company brand reputation, these are important things as well. And what we've found is that we've really had to address this through education. So across our platforms and our conversations and presentations that we have with our network, We often ensure that we have that positive language around how we're telling our story from industry. Of course, there's a lot of honesty and transparency there as well, but we always want to be solutions-based. So that's really important for us as well, and important for you to continue your company branding and how that looks and feels like for people that you want to have in your organization. From an engagement perspective, this is something that's really important as well. So if we're thinking about the actual mechanics around applying, so how simple is it? What language are you using? How accessible it is as well, in terms of access to internet and understanding of language, using simple language. That's often one of the things that we can address, but also something as well that can really help us attract more people and push them through that bottleneck as well of applying for roles within industry. Okay, the last two things I really wanted to talk about is, of course, the employment and also retention phase as well of onboarding and retaining Indigenous employees. So thinking about the onboarding process, when we think about group engagement centres and also group onboarding at the same time, what we've found is that that's been most successful for us as well when we've onboarded ourselves, but also for other peoples as well coming into the industry. What that does do is create an organic buddy system, but also that familiarity and safe space as well. One of the biggest things I really wanted to highlight in this section is creating a cultural calendar. I am really looking forward to a lot more organisations doing this. This is a fantastic initiative and a really great idea, and we've really been excited about it from a network perspective. Knowing that we've got things like NAIDOC Week throughout the year, Reconciliation Week throughout the year, that's really great. But the additional thing that's really important to us is when we have a welcome to country scheduled in on a regular basis. So we know that onboarding will continue over the course of the year, and we know the exact dates as well, or when we can expect when we can have those welcome to countries on site. What that addresses in terms of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees is something very important to us is our cultural and spiritual safety. So for us to really know that we've got a regular welcome to country from traditional owners really gives us that safety that we really love, and that care and value for our own spiritual and cultural beliefs as well. So that's a very high value and very high successful retention tool as well. So on the topic of retention, this is something that's really exciting. And as you can see there, the second point down, building a network for Indigenous employees. So of course, that's going to be my very favorite point of this one here. But what I really wanted to highlight here is that how do you start to build a community in your workplace or across your operations for your Indigenous employees to really feel like they're part of a community and something greater. What that will start to also enable is shared knowledge between the grassroots of operations, but also through management as well. So when you're thinking about how you keep informed around your practices specific to your site, or something that you can really contribute to at a very national or global level from your operations, this is something that's of value and very unique as well, and should be celebrated, definitely. Leadership training here is also something else that's very important. When we think about our leaders on site, we really want to make sure that they're confident in terms of the challenges of a dynamic team. So this is something that there's definitely a lot more services that are out there for it, but something that's really fundamental to success as well and retention of Indigenous employees. So of course, last but not least, a call to action for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women who are in operations to join our network. It is truly a beautiful community that we do have. We've got women from around Australia, but we want you to also know that if you're encouraging your employees to join our community, we really look forward to working with you in terms of informing you about the data that we're collating there as well, and some of the challenges that we can help you address specifically to your operations or your organisation. But of course, it's a really great space to be, a culturally safe space. And we look forward to doing a lot of things with IWMRA moving forward. And we really would love your team members to also be a part of that as well. Thank you all for joining me today in my presentation at the Copper to the World conference. I do look forward to hearing more of your success stories. And of course, if you'd like help with anything that we've spoken about today, or to share any of your success stories, please do get in touch. We'd love to know more. So thank you all, stay safe, and see you again soon.
Thanks, Florence. She really just has an amazing way of looking at Indigenous employment and Indigenous employment for women, should you come across her, and the ability of this group to connect across existing staff, whether they be truck drivers, whether they be geos, whether they be site managers, and just build the confidence for Indigenous women to work in the mining and the exploration sector. It's a great initiative, and I think it links beautifully to what Katie was talking about, which is really, at the end of the day, it all comes back to people. And the one thing we all know is in exploration mining, we will intersect with people. In Australia, we will intersect with First Nations. And so our last speaker for the day, an honoured position, is Renee Hakendorf. Renee is the National Lead for Core Innovation. At Copper to the World last year, Renee and our Minister launched Core Innovation's establishment here in Adelaide. 12 months on, and Core Innovation Hub is doing amazing things. They've gone from strength to strength in challenging times to kick a business off, cut off from most of the country, connecting innovators with industry across the energy and resources sector. Renee has a very strong understanding of startups from her previous work with ThinkLab at the University of Adelaide, which was their incubator, working with startups to grow their ventures, secure investors, and validate the path to market. And today, Renee is going to talk to us about the Core Innovation Hub's Hot 30 Innovators and how it's helping drive innovation in South Australia. Thanks, Renee.
Hi everyone, and thanks Alex for that lovely introduction. Congratulations to Louise and the team at DEM for putting on a fantastic conference today. I am aware I am what is standing between you and the networking, so I'm going to attempt to keep this short and sweet and hopefully enjoyable. So let us first begin by recognising the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Kaurna people, and their elders past, present, and their emerging leaders as well. For those of you that don't know much about Core, it's probably worth me providing a little bit of background for your reference. Our mission at Core Innovation Hub is to connect innovators with industry across the energy and resources sector. To do that, we support them with spaces to work and collaborate, skills pathways, and the ability to leverage a national ecosystem of more than 3,000 professionals, founders, investors, academics, and government reps. Our business started in Perth in 2016 and we expanded into South Australia at the invitation of the State Government's Department for Energy and Mining in the middle of last year, as Alex said. We have unique experience in cultivating thriving business communities in capital cities and in the regions, and our team is committed to the transformational change required to maintain a world-leading sustainable resources sector. We now operate 3 hubs across Australia in Perth, Adelaide, and our new hub in Newman in the Pilbara, a partnership with BHP. At Core, we're really passionate about strengthening Australia's reputation as a global innovator in energy and resources by nurturing resilient business growth throughout the sector. Working with both large and small businesses, we've been able to break down the barriers and create opportunities for successful technology trials, establishing pathways for commercialisation of new products and services. Our networks have resulted in cross-pollination for companies in mining, energy, space and defence, and we continue to work with those companies to enhance their knowledge and skills. And I can reveal some exciting news today, which you might have heard if you were at GMUSG the other week. We are expanding our presence at the State Government's Lot 14 Innovation Precinct, moving into the Hanson building, where we'll be creating a custom-fitted resources innovation hub right in the centre of Adelaide. So as a core member going forward, right here in Adelaide, you'll be able to access this city satellite office for your company or even a permanent home to grow your business. The space is going to include a boardroom, meeting rooms, event facilities, and casual and full-time desks, as well as secure offices with 24/7 access, all managed by CORE. And we really look forward to welcoming businesses, startups, academia, government into that nest to innovate together, which I think is really complements the theme of this session around collaboration and connection. But today I'm here to talk about one of our flagship programs, which is the Core Innovation Hot 30, a curated list of the ones to watch across the sector, those that are growing quickly or are demonstrating growth potential. As part of the program, we support companies to produce a short pitch video promoting their business and then leverage our networks to create national exposure for that company, amplifying their own marketing efforts. We released the inaugural Hot 30 last year, and you can see here it's a really diverse range of companies from right across Australia. Their technologies include the full spectrum of Industry 4.0 capabilities. In particular, we're seeing a lot of robotics, automation, and the power of harnessing data really impacting the sector. More about each of these companies, including their profile and each of those pitch videos that they prepared as part of the program, are up on our website if you want to learn more about each one. But I thought it was worth today focusing on our 9 South Australian companies that were recognised as part of that Hot 30. Some of these names I hope are familiar to you: Consilium Technology,